From childhood's hour I have not been, as others were, I have not seen, as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone, and all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life was drawn, from every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. That is a poem called Alone by Edgar Allan Poe, and it sums it up beautifully. Some of my earliest memories as a child is of a strange and unreasonable fear. A fear of the unknown, a background level of unease. I didn't know what the word anxiety meant until I was an adult, but looking back, it was textbook anxiety. I would be very fearful of anything that I wasn't familiar or comfortable with, things like sports days, holidays, anything unexpected, anything different to what I was used to. And this background level of unease and fear stayed with me. When I was in year 7, the transition between primary school to middle school was so much that I was very tearful very often. I couldn't cope. It was an incredibly overwhelming time, and I would be in floods of tears often in class. And I missed a lot of classes as a result of this. I said I had a headache, but I didn't have a headache, and the adults didn't really know what to do with me. Often when I was asked what is wrong, or what is it about school that is worrying you, or what is it about certain things that are making you feel afraid, I would say I don't know, because that's the truth. I didn't know. It was just always there, a feeling of fear. Going into young adulthood, sadly, I remember taking my first alcoholic drink. My fear completely dissolved, and it was such a huge relief to suddenly feel this background level of tension and unease just dissolve and melt away. An incredibly powerful drug that alcohol is, and a central nervous system depressant. This is why we find it so appealing, and why it is so destructive, and why it is so addictive, because this background pain that I had always been suffering with all of a sudden was completely gone. So this kind of set the stage for the next 10 years of my life, which would be characterized by an alcohol addiction. At its worst in adulthood, this was probably about 6 years ago now, 7 years ago now. At its absolute worst, I was in a state with my mental health where my anxiety was bad enough. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't make phone calls, even just simple things like phone calls to electric companies, gas companies, things like that. I was on medication for the depression and the anxiety, 100 milligrams citalopram, which is an antidepressant and an anti-anxiety medication. And I was drinking upwards of 20 cans of cider a day with my addiction. I was also suicidal, and suicide is the biggest killer of young men, statistically speaking, and it's sad to say it, I very, very nearly joined that statistic. I know this is a very gloomy start to this episode and a very depressing start to this episode, but it's all about positivity, because let's fast forward that 6 years to today. Today I wake up full of energy, absolutely full of energy, full of joy, full of optimism. There is no fear. I walk around fully confident. My confidence is so high now that I can stand on stage in front of hundreds of people and deliver motivational speeches. I can teach exercise classes. I have no trouble meeting new people. I have no trouble going and doing new things. And this episode is all about everything I've learned along the way over the last 6 years. Some of the techniques and practices that have helped me so much with my mental health and completely changed the way I perceive the world and the way that I experience the world. My experience of life is so much different now, completely free. I often characterize my life now by freedom. I call myself the free man because I am free of this darkness. I am free of anxiety, free of addiction, free of depression. I'm free of all of it. And I would like to share, it's partly why I'm doing this podcast, because I'd like to share it. Because too many people are suffering unnecessarily. There are too many people suffering with anxiety, with this fear, with this sadness, with depression, with a lack of energy, with a lack of vitality, with low self-esteem, low self-confidence, no self-worth at all. And their lives are becoming so unmanageable, and it's so sad to see, because it doesn't have to be that way. There can be changes that we can make that will start to move this situation forwards. And if you have found this episode and you have found this podcast because you have suffered or you know somebody who has suffered, I'd like to tell you and reassure you that things can get better. But we have to start looking at ways that we can start to genuinely move this situation forward. We're going to start looking at what can be done today to start moving this situation forward. These days I'm completely sober and I'm on no medication at all. There are no chemicals in this system, other than maybe a bit of caffeine, but I think I'm going to allow myself that little vice. Because of all the vices I used to have, that's the only one I still have. I don't eat sugar anymore, no alcohol, no drugs, nothing. I think I'm allowed a little bit of caffeine. That's the only drug that's in my system right now. But we are going to take a look at some of the things that I did to recover. And I class it as a full recovery from mental health, because these days, yes, I still have days when maybe my energy starts to dip a little, and maybe I feel a little worried maybe if I'm going to, I don't know, meet new people or go to something new, start a new job. But these are all the normal, reasonable, usual things that are a part of the human experience, and they are not an illness as such. So we're going to take a deeper look into some issues in mental health, might even go into a little of what causes mental health, but most importantly, what can be done to start moving forwards, to start feeling that energy and that joy start to come forwards, because the future is positive and the future is bright, and that's what we're going to start moving towards today. So I hope you are all well out there. I hope you are all comfortable out there. And let's take a little look at mental health. I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises. And indeed, it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof, fretted with golden fire, why, it appears no other thing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapours. What a piece of work is a man! How noble in reason! How infinite in faculties! In form and moving, how express and admirable! In action, how like an angel! In apprehension, how like a god! the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? That is Act 2, Scene 2 of Hamlet by Shakespeare, and that was published in 1603. I use that excerpt there to highlight that mental health is not a new problem. It is not something that has arisen as a result of our modern age, but it is something that has plagued mankind since the dawn of our consciousness. I can imagine even cavemen who will have had people in the tribe who are succumbing to this lack of energy and this lack of vitality, or an excessive avoidance of certain situations. And I think sometimes that we do this phenomena a disservice by saying that it is a health problem. I believe that it's more a very natural part of the human experience to occasionally feel low and to occasionally feel anxious, but these things sometimes become unreasonable and these things sometimes become excessive. So if you do suffer from depression and anxiety, the first thing is to say that this is not a new problem. This is something that has plagued mankind since the dawn of time, and there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing fundamentally sick. There is nothing fundamentally odd or strange about you. It is a very human problem, and you are a very human being. So this is something that we want to change and we want to move forwards, but you are not necessarily sick or ill. There is no inherent issue with your genetics or your brain chemistry. You are a human being, and human beings have an infinite number of expressions. For me personally, I think I'm just a very emotional person. I'm an unusually emotional person. I feel very extreme emotions. If I feel good, I feel incredibly good. And if I feel bad, I feel incredibly bad. If I feel worried, I feel excessively worried. And if I feel low, I feel excessively low. But the opposite is true also. And if I feel joy and love, for anything to change, that's just who I am as a person. Naturally, I try to limit the amount that I feel depressed, I feel low, and I feel anxious, and I do that using natural ways that I have learned along the way. But I use this historical account, so Hamlet here, or Shakespeare as he wrote in Hamlet, what he's talking about here. So this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, and I'm sure if you have felt depression before or you have felt low before, you have felt this very frustrating and very dark feeling when you are gazing upon something utterly beautiful. Let's say you are looking at this sunset, and this is what he talks about, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, so the clouds all alight with that fire, with that sunshine, and these beautiful colours. But all you see is just, it doesn't connect with you on an emotional level. It just feels grey, and it just feels sort of blank. And he says he even sees it as a foul and pestilent congregation of vapours. And this is that feeling of feeling low and feeling depressed when everything around you is just feeling so heavy and grey and lacking any colour. In ancient times, they believed that this was a build-up of black bile, and this is where we get our term melancholy coming from. The term melancholy, literally translated, means black bile, and they believed that you had a build-up of this sort of heavy, toxic bile, this thick liquid in the blood, and that's what was causing you to feel so sluggish and feel so slow. And obviously we know that's not true now, but it gives you some insight into how it feels. I think, especially with depression, it's a misunderstood phenomena. Because to an outward eye, to somebody looking at somebody who's depressed, it looks like this is somebody who simply feels very, very sad. And although sadness is a part of it, I characterize it more as a complete loss of your vital life energy, your enthusiasm, your optimism, your desire and wish to do new things, to seek out new things, and to experience the joy of life. And it's a loss of your vital energy. So how can we bring that vital energy back up, and how can we start to move forwards with that? Similarly, with anxiety, it's often seen that people are anxious about a certain thing, or that there is something that is worrying you, or something that is on your mind, and this isn't always the case. It's just the fact that you have a very overactive mind, and it sometimes just becomes a little too overactive. And we're going to get into this a little bit more here about anxiety in the next segment, but essentially it comes down to looking at these things from a sort of, if we look at the whole perspective, the whole thing, that if you are suffering with this low mood or with this anxiety, it's certainly not a new phenomena, and it's not something that has simply just arisen as a result of our modern age and because of social media and the way our jobs are and all of this. It has existed throughout time. There's always been these periods of low mood in people, and these periods of unreasonable fear and unreasonable anxiety. So we're going to start taking a little look into these things and how to start moving forwards from these things. But it begins with recognition and understanding, because change cannot happen without understanding. So we must understand the nature of what we are dealing with. Forget historical context for a moment, and forget societal context for a moment, medical context, all of that. We're just going to put that to one side for a moment, because I would like to talk to you about you. And I would like to talk to you about you here and now. If you suffer with anxiety and depression, and you're desperately looking for ways forward with it, and you're trying to find a way to get better, then we need to take a look at two very, very important questions. One, do you want to feel better? And two, do you believe that you can feel better? These are two questions that on the surface might feel a little patronizing and might feel a little obvious, but if we dig a little deeper, we realize that maybe it's not so obvious, and maybe it doesn't have quite such a clear-cut answer. So let's begin with, do you want to feel better? And I will ask you that as a genuine question. Do you really, really want to recover? This could be rephrased as, have you suffered enough? Because there has to come a point when you realize that it can't go on like this. When it's gotten to a point where this is just misery now. It's not going to just get better on its own. It's not just a phase. It's not because, it's just a difficult life circumstance that I'm in at the moment and things will get better at some point. There comes a point when you go, you know what? I don't feel great with this, and I'm not sure if the resources that I have at the moment are cutting it, and I don't feel like I have the resources available to me to move this forward on my own. There comes a point when you simply have to say, I'm going to need some help with this. And you would think that this feeling would result in a feeling of admitting defeat, or a feeling of, oh god, yeah, I'm sort of, now it's going to be a slow march down to the doctors where I'm going to admit that I have failed. This is not the feeling that you get when you finally reach the point when you go, you know what, I can't do this on my own. I've come, I've tried everything I can. I've used all of my resourcefulness. I've used my creativity. I've reached out to everybody that I can. And at this point now, I've recognized that I'm going to need some more help with this than I'm currently getting. This does not result in a feeling of defeat. This results in a huge feeling of liberation. It results in a huge feeling of freedom, because you're suddenly opening yourself out to receiving more input with regards to this problem. And I can say this confidently because I had this exact feeling when I finally reached that point when I said, you know what, I can't do this on my own now. I tried, I did everything that I could, and it's not that I'm going to need hand holding for the rest of my life and need this sort of like, I'm going to be hospitalized for the rest of my life. It wasn't like that. It was that I'm going to need to speak to some experts now, because there is this dark cloud that has been haunting me since day one. Since day one of my life, there is this dark cloud hanging over me. It's always there. Even in happy days, there is a shadow there. Even in the good times, there is this background sense of unease. And it got to a point where, you know what, I'm going to need to speak to an expert about this. I'm going to need to see a doctor. I'm going to need to read. I'm going to need to learn. I need to find out what this thing is, because with this knowledge, and if I can find out what it is, and if I can get some of this help, then I'm in a better position to combat this thing. And then I'm in a better position to actually fix this thing and rid myself of this dark cloud once and for all. But it begins with a recognition that I'm going to need some help. But often people are reluctant to go and get help. And this is fine as well, because we like to be self-sufficient and we like to be independent, and we have a feeling that we don't want to bother people, or maybe even a negative belief that maybe people can't help. If so far your experience of this has been every time you've asked for help, people haven't helped very much, that just means you need to ask different people. Often we go to people who we trust, who might be very, very good at helping us with other things, but then when we go to them with mental health issues, they either don't fully understand or they don't have helpful resources for you. And this is when we need to go and see specialists, and when we need to go and see doctors and things like that. Or even, I don't want to discredit people like spiritual leaders and stuff. Maybe it's a spiritual leader or somebody who aligns with your values, and it could be like a meditation teacher, or it could be a guru of sorts. It could be something along those lines. It doesn't necessarily have to be medical. However, I would recommend going to see a doctor first, because I can't describe this feeling of liberation that I had when I finally went and sat in a doctor's office and said, yeah, I'm not too well. I'm not too well with my mental health, and it's been going on for a long time, because they were amazing. And there is this myth that all doctors do is just throw pills at you and tell you to get out of the office. That is a total myth. If that has been your experience, then you need to find another doctor and make an official complaint about the doctor that did do that. But in my experience, that hasn't been the case. Maybe they don't get it 100% right all of the time, and sometimes when that part of their plan might be medication, but they've actually been incredibly open and patient focused, and they really do listen to everything that you say, and they try and put together things that are going to help move you forwards. In my case, the very first step was that they organized CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And this was a first step towards my liberation, essentially. This was the first step towards permanent, secure recovery from severe mental health issues. And we often think that, oh, yeah, I'm going to sort of admit that I feel this way, and then it's going to be a long journey to recovery. It actually happens so quickly, because the sense of relief that I felt, it was like calling in for the support. It's like you've been in a firefight for a long time. You've been pinned down by enemy fire, and it's been stressful, and you've been grinding out this battle, this war zone for so long, and then all of a sudden you call in the air support, and the air support arrives, and then the reinforcements arrive, and all of a sudden the doctor, it feels like they come in and they say, we're getting you out of here because you've been suffering too much for too long, and now we're going to start taking some of this burden. And that's what they want to help. That's what they're there for. That's why they've chosen this career, because they want to help people. And you're not wasting their time. That's why they're there. That's why they're there. And they want to help, and they're going to work with you, and it's all going to start brightening up and moving forwards from there. So that's, do you want to get better? That's, do you want to get better? Ask yourself, do you want to get better? And if you answer yes, I do want to get better, and yet you're saying, no, I don't want to see a doctor, or I don't want to see a professional, then maybe ask yourself that question again. Do I want to get better? Because you may believe it on the inside, but your actions are not reflecting this. Do I want to get better? Yes. Well, then let's start doing things that are actually going to make real practical steps forwards, because people aren't getting the message, right? You can post on Facebook and you can sort of hint at it, and you can keep hinting at it all day long to the people around you. They're not going to pick up on the signals, and it's not because they're ignorant, and it's not because they don't care. It's because people don't see it. It's an invisible condition. People simply won't see it. You have to go to somebody who gets it and tell them in no uncertain terms, I need help. And you will feel so good as a result of that. The second question here is, do you believe that you can get better? This is a huge, huge part, not only of my recovery from mental health, but my weight loss journey as well as my recovery from addiction, because what you believe about yourself is true. If you believe you can do something, or you believe you can't do something, you are right. Let that sink in. If you believe you can, you are right. If you believe you can't, you are right. So right here, right now, we need to set the belief that you can fully 100% recover from mental health conditions. I don't care how long it's been going on. I don't care how severe it is. I don't care how tough it is. It can be done. When you start moving forwards towards this recovery and towards a brighter, more optimistic, more confident world, you reaffirm to yourself that this can be done. So I want to share this experience. I went to my first CBT session, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And it was in this very clinical building, in this sort of NHS clinical building. And I was walking down to it and then walking through the corridors of this, and a peculiar feeling came over me, a feeling I hadn't felt before. And a very clear thought arrived in my mind: I should be feeling nervous right now. Because any time I'd ever gone to any other doctor's appointment, or I'd had blood taken, or let's say, or an interview, or a date, I'd gone to meet somebody new, something like this nasty feeling of anxiety was there, this horrible demon hiding behind the door, whispering nasty things in my ear. But I was expecting to have that feeling when I went to this cognitive behavioral therapy. But I had this peculiar feeling of peace. There was no feeling of anxiety about it at all. The reason was I had finally turned and faced the demon, and I could see it for what it is. And this is even before I'd had my first session. I was just sat outside the office waiting for the session, but this feeling in me, because I recognized that there are ways forwards, that everything I'd been doing previously wasn't working. Overeating, comfort eating, that doesn't work. Self-medicating with alcohol, that doesn't work. So I'd canned all of that. That's not going to work. Maybe it's going to take some time to remove those habits. That's fine. But I am now going to move towards all of the positive things that I can do to move myself forwards. And I was sat outside of this cognitive behavioral therapy office. She was amazing. Kathy Freeman, her name was. She was absolutely phenomenal. And I went in with a huge smile on my face. I actually almost felt like a bit of a fraud, because I sat down feeling confident and clear. And I told her, I don't know what's happened, but I just feel good today. But she talked through all of these things to do with cognitive behavior and why our thoughts are the way they are, and certain unhelpful thought patterns. Now, this isn't the only thing that I did, but it did open a doorway to all of these other recovery pathways. And cognitive behavioral therapy is a fantastic, it's free on the NHS. It gives you a very powerful insight into your mind, and insight is going to be a phenomenal tool of yours in this journey and in this recovery. And cognitive behavioral therapy, it gives you a magnifying glass. It gives you a magnifying glass into the deeper processes of your thoughts. So, A, do you want to get better? And B, do you believe you can get better? When the genuine answer to both of those questions is yes, you will start to feel better. Because it's not always going to be this way. It's not. There is a much brighter future for you around the corner. And sometimes it's purely a leap of faith. You simply have to take a leap of faith and say, the way things have been, it's not working for me, and I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to feel this way. I love myself. I have respect for myself. I am a human being who should be experiencing the full range of the human experience. And I am not having another day with my eyes down, with my shoulders hunched, feeling low on energy, feeling nervous, feeling bad about myself, feeling this low confidence, low self-esteem, low energy. I'm not having it anymore. Maybe I don't know the way forward just yet. Maybe I don't know. But one thing I do know is that I can learn, and I can learn every day, and I'm going to find a way that works for me to finally permanently recover from this thing once and for all. There are many ways to feel more positive, to feel more optimistic, to increase your energy, to feel less nervous, less anxious. Many, many ways, and I don't claim to know them all, but I would like to share all of the ones that have been the most effective for me in order to recover fully from these mental health conditions. My number one recommendation is exercise. It's exercise because, after all, you are a physical being. You are a physical phenomena, and our society is very cerebral, and it's all up in our mind. And we have begun to neglect this physical body. When we're dealing with our mental health, we are to a large extent dealing with our biochemistry, because we feel so much better when we have these natural feel-good chemicals floating around in our system, our dopamine, our serotonin, and all of these sorts of things. The best way to activate these things naturally is to get outside and get moving. I ran and I ran and I ran and I ran. And it was hard work, but the feeling was utterly incredible when I finally started to get a bit fitter and I was charging around. I was in a small Devon town at this time. I was charging around up and down these hills, running around. The feeling was incredible, the feeling of freedom and the increase in energy. It's not always going to feel like that. You're not just going to constantly feel this huge natural high. But once you've tasted it a couple of times, you will be hooked. And exercise has long been recognized as one of the most effective natural remedies for mild to moderate mental health issues. Obviously, when it gets incredibly severe, these things become a bit more difficult. But for most people who suffer with these things, it tends to be mild to moderate. And exercise, I very quickly realized that exercise wasn't just something I would do kind of alongside my recovery or something that might help with my recovery. I recognized that exercise was my recovery. It was my recovery. It's not only the physical biochemistry of it, but it's this sense of self-confidence and self-worth that comes out because I was sending a signal to myself that I want to be healthy, that I want to be fit, and that I'm not going to shy away from discomfort. I'm not going to shy away from pain. I am actively going to go out there and seek it because I am strong. I am strong. I am made of strong things, and you are. You might not feel like it, but you are strong. After all, you have survived this far. You must have some resilience and some strength and some endurance. It must be there. You've survived up till now. Let's start adding new things to that. And the feeling when I was out, I remember it to this day, and I will never forget it. The first time I went for a run and I felt very fit was that I didn't stop all the way around this run. And in the early times, I was jog and run, walking at times. And this time, I absolutely flew around this course, and the sun was on my skin, and this sunset was absolutely beautiful, and I just felt this amazing feeling. And what made it all the sweeter was the fact it was totally natural. No alcohol in the system, no drugs in the system. It was purely based on my own natural chemicals. The other thing is when you're fit and strong, when you've been lifting weights, or maybe it's just body weight, maybe it's cardio and body weight, whatever exercise works best for you. But when you are as fit and as strong as you can reasonably be, you're confident. You walk down the street with a sense of confidence that you probably haven't felt before, because you just feel more capable. You feel more capable of dealing with things. And I'm convinced that this goes a long way to removing a lot of this background anxiety, because a lot of our anxiety comes from a deeper feeling that we can't cope with things, or we won't be able to cope with things when they arise. But when you are fit and strong, this begins to dissolve, because you start to realize that you are an overcomer. You overcome things. And pushing through exercise, I mean, as a metaphor in itself, you are literally pushing through resistance. You are literally driving yourself forwards. You are striving to drive up this hill, and you are overcoming all of the pain and this discomfort that comes with it. And this starts to build layers of strength, because you are so clearly demonstrating to yourself that you are strong, that you can overcome pain, that you can deal with any circumstance and any situation. The other thing that I would like to talk about is medication. And today, currently, I'm not on any medication. I was on quite heavy medication at the start of my journey, and over the last 6 years or so, there have been times when things haven't been so great and I've gone back on to mild doses, but over the years that's happened fewer and fewer times, and these days I don't need it. However, so with medication, the doctor might prescribe this, and we have a really hard time taking medication, and I get it. I totally understand. We don't like the feeling that we need to take a chemical in order to correct an imbalance in the brain. In the short term, it can help. It really can. And if the doctor has prescribed these pills, I mean, they've done like 8 years of medical training, okay? They know what they're talking about. And no doctor wants to keep you on these pills permanently, but they know that it can help. In the short term, it might just get you through. And when it's bad, when the mental health is bad and it's really, you're in that dark place, you need to take all the help that you can get. And that medication, it might be quite literally a hard pill to swallow, but just do it. If the doctor has prescribed it, they have prescribed it for a reason. And if you are suffering with some of these mental health things, and you are taking pills and medication, I want to say well done. Good for you. Good job. And thank you for taking that, because I know it sometimes carries a stigma or a sense of shame. You don't like to think about it, you don't like to feel about it, but you are taking a medication that is going to help you, and it's not going to be forever. But I know for a fact that there are people laying at the bottom of cliffs and laying in morgues and people who have hurt themselves and hung themselves, who would still be walking around on planet Earth if they'd have just taken the fucking pills. But for some reason, it's so tough, For some reason, we find it so tough to do that. But it can get you through the dark period. It can get you through a really rough time. If you're sick, if you're not well, and sometimes you just need to take the medication. If you had a bacterial infection, you would take the antibiotics. We've come so far with all of these things, and this is a modern version of what we've always done, which is try and find ways to give ourselves the best fighting chance. In early days, they would use there's a plant called St. John's wort it's a natural antidepressant, and it's a natural remedy for depression and anxiety. And people back then, they would chew this, and they would have teas and stuff that are made out of this thing. And that must be a bitter pill to swallow as well. But this is the modern version of that. And if they've prescribed it, I would recommend taking it, because there have been times it's helped me through. And if I'd have been stubborn about it and refused to take it, and maybe there were times that I was stubborn and didn't want to take it, but if I'd have been very stubborn about it and not taking it, I might not be here today. The condition may have gotten so bad, and my thoughts may have gotten to the point where it really wasn't worth it for me anymore, and I might not be here today. So remove the stigma for yourself. Who cares about society? Okay, forget society for a moment. Ask yourself what it means to you. In the short term, if it's been prescribed, it's a good idea to take it. But let's start adding things in that are going to be a permanent part of our recovery. Alongside exercise, I would highly recommend meditation. Meditation is a direct training of your brain, of your thoughts, that align yourself naturally with the present moment. And in the present moment, depression and anxiety do not exist. They are completely gone. So just to share my story with it, I picked up a book called Finding Peace in a Frantic World. It's quite a common book in CBT circles and in sort of introduction to meditation. And there were some guided meditations on there. And I was just giving it a try. Just thought, okay, well, you know, I'm trying everything now. I just opened myself out to trying absolutely everything. So it came with these guided meditations, and I would read this book and I would do these meditations, and it just felt like, okay, it's just another thing. I don't know if it's working, but whatever, I'll keep trying. And then one day I sat down, I closed my eyes, and I went in, I had the guided meditation on, I went into this meditative state, and all of a sudden I got it. I got it. I was utterly, totally at peace. Everything dissolved. The feeling is like waking up from a nightmare. You know that feeling when you wake up and you're still a little bit worried and a little bit frantic and a little bit afraid of everything that happened in the dream. And then all of a sudden, you realize it was a nightmare. And you laugh, and all of the pain and all of the fear just drops away, just falls away. And this was my experience. They call it Kensho or Satori, which is moments of brief realization where you suddenly recognize it's the present moment. It is. When you're listening to this, it's the present moment. It will never be anything other than right now. There is no past. There is no future. You also begin to recognize that your thoughts aren't always right. And you begin to recognize that you have been giving so much importance and belief to every single thought you have. A very common one with anxiety is a sort of emotional reasoning, and reasoning believing that, well, if I feel nervous, I must be nervous about something. If I feel anxious, there must be something to be anxious about. This is not true. Sometimes your mind has completely fabricated an illusory future, a future that may never arrive and probably will never arrive, and it has created this frightening phantom. It's very convincing, and it really does make you feel like it's there, but guess what? It's not. It is a total illusion. It is a nightmare that can be safely disregarded permanently. Meditation is one of the most liberating and freeing practices that you can do. It is a very self-loving practice, and it is a very kind practice that you can do for yourself. And all you do is simply sit and watch your thoughts, and you begin to recognize that your thoughts are not the full picture, and you are perfectly safe, content, and happy in your being, in your present moment. It is only thoughts that can convince you to become depressed and can convince you to become anxious. So wouldn't it be a good idea to get a little control of these thoughts, to get a little discipline over your thoughts? After all, your life experience is characterized by the color of these thoughts. So wouldn't it be a good idea to realign yourself with the present moment and rein in your thoughts and not have them so frantic and have them so stressed and worried? It's often likened to, let's say we have a bowl of water and all of this dirt in the bottom has been disturbed and kicked up, and now the water is muddy. Now, if I was to put my hands into the water and try and clear the mud out of the water, all I'm going to do is kick up more mud in the bottom, and it's going to make the water even dirtier. This is what we do when we're trying to outthink our anxiety, because we're trying to solve problems in the future and in the past, and all of these illusory problems that don't actually exist, but we're putting our hands in and stirring up more dirt because we're trying to fix everything. Wouldn't it be a better idea to just take your hands out of the bowl completely, wait and watch and allow the dirt to settle? Once the water is clear, then we can see what actually needs to be dealt with. But at the moment, if you're anxious and you're frantic in your thoughts and you're trying to fix these by simply stirring up more dirt, it's not going to work. So I've included in this series of podcasts a couple of guided meditations, and these are the principles that helped me the most. There are different disciplines in meditation, but they're all focused on the same thing, and that is to bring your attention fully into the here and now. The school that I found the most useful is Zen, because it's very bare bones and it's very, you don't need chants, you don't need mantras, you don't need incense, you don't need any of it. All you need is everything that you have right now. And there is a beauty to this simplicity because you will always have it. You always have your conscious attention and you always have your breath. If you don't have your conscious attention and you don't have your breath, then you've got bigger problems than I'm qualified to deal with, I'm afraid. But if you have your breath and your conscious attention, you can find peace at any time, regardless of the situation. You can bring yourself into the present moment. And in the present moment, you recognize you can deal with anything because the future's not arrived and it never will. It's only ever now. And whatever is happening in the present moment, you can deal with. You really can. So exercise, medication if it's been prescribed, meditation. The other thing is, let's get rid of all of these nasty chemicals in the system. So for me, obviously, I went down a very dark road of drinking a ridiculous quantity of alcohol. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. So it's only a matter of time. If you regularly consume alcohol, you will become depressed. You will. There is no way around that, I'm afraid. You might not even realize it or recognize it, but do you know that feeling you get when you're hungover? That sort of heavy dread and depression and that worry, that anxiety, right? That's because there is a very powerful toxic drug in your system and the buzz has worn off. If you suffer with anxiety and depression, you have absolutely no business drinking alcohol or taking any drugs, because this process now is we are trying to realign the brain chemicals and trying to align our life to better support a feeling of peace and a feeling of joy and a feeling of happiness. And so you have no business messing with your brain chemicals, because we need to start getting them balanced. We need to start getting everything back into order and back into alignment. And this is going to be tough because, I mean, I know for me it was a sort of self-medication, I guess. And it's very difficult to let go of these things that feel like they're helping, but they're not. They're really not. And there are better ways forwards than things like alcohol and drugs. And I get that, I can't preach. I'm not preaching. I'm not saying that anybody has to do this or should do this. And in many ways, I abused alcohol, and I abused my privilege, and I abused my right to consume these drugs because I went way too far, and that's on me. That's my personal responsibility. I fucked up. It's as simple as that. And it's no like, I can't say, it's not like, oh, I fucked up and now everybody else has to stop drinking alcohol. Okay, I get that. But so that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if you love yourself and if you respect yourself, why are you putting a poison into your system? That's the realization I came to. If I'm serious about my health, I'm serious about my recovery, I don't want that powerful central nervous system depressant in my system. Why would I? So addiction is going to be the third episode. I won't get into it too much now, but yeah, sobriety and not having, even it can be things like sugar and fat and things like this, is all of these systems, all of these substances that alter our brain's chemistry. They are going to disrupt the balance, and we're trying to bring our body back to balance. These days I don't crave alcohol at all, ever. It just doesn't happen. And I don't really crave, well, I don't crave any drug at all. It's all out of my system. Again, other than caffeine, I suppose. So, exercise, let's get that done. Medication, if it's been prescribed. Meditation, again, I mean, meditation is something that can be done basically at all times. It's a perspective and a shift in attitude, and it can make such a huge difference to your well-being, your health, and your happiness. And you never know, you might just wake up from this nightmare. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke. And the whores and the bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay down. Do you want to mess me up? You want to screw up the works? You want to blow my book sales in Europe? There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too clever. I only let him out at night sometimes, when everybody's asleep. I say, I know that you're there, so don't be sad. Then I put him back, but he's singing a little in there. I haven't quite let him die, and we sleep together like that with our secret pact, and it's nice enough to make a man weep, but I don't weep. Do you? That is a poem called Bluebird by Charles Bukowski. So, there's a few more things that I guess are my personal take on. A few things that would be my personal take on ways to move forwards and recover from mental health that probably don't find their way onto many lists. So, things like exercise, medication, meditation, sobriety, all of these sorts of things. These are almost all of the kind of safe things to recommend for mental health. But this is my podcast, and there's a few extra things that I would add to. I would add to this because this all adds to the human experience. So, one of the most important things that I have found is to have the confidence and courage to remove toxic, negative people from your life. And you have to be ruthless when you are finally deciding to protect yourself, to look after yourself, and to want the best for yourself. You have to in some sense, get very cold and very aggressive with it. And I know that's going to make some people uncomfortable, but sometimes you have to make a very clear stand that if I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be well, I need to get rid of all of the people who are making me miserable. And when you start to move forwards, I mean, you might ask, how do I identify these people? Well, they will identify themselves. When you begin to move forwards and start taking big positive steps, they will very quickly show themselves, because they will, at every step along the way, try to hold you back, try to convince you not to take that positive step. They will be whispering in your ear with doubt and uncertainty and anxiety and nasty things. And sometimes it's so subtle. Sometimes it is so subtle that you have to develop an ear for it. And it's not paranoia, it's you practicing your discernment to really hear what people are saying. And there may be people in your life that you consider close and you consider friends, but ask yourself, when you come away from having a conversation with that person, do you come away feeling good and feeling light and feeling positive and feeling reaffirmed and feeling confident, feeling good? Because that is what a friend or a family member should have you feeling like. When you have that conversation with them, you come away from it feeling good. If you find too often that you're having a conversation with someone and there is something about their energy, the way they treat you, the way they speak to you, that you begin to recognize that, hang on a minute, when I said that I'm going to go to the gym tonight, and their response was, oh, what, again? You're going to go to the gym again? You're getting obsessed. You went yesterday. Why? Oh God! And if you say, yeah, I'm going to, I don't want to drink tonight. In fact, I'm thinking I might knock the drinking on the head completely, because I don't think it's good for me, and I'm trying to just sort of do more positive things with my life. Some people, true friends, will say, hey, good for you. That's great, because, yeah, I think you do maybe drink a bit too much, and I'm so glad that you're taking that positive step forwards. But some people go, oh, they don't like it. They don't like to hear that you're taking that step, and they'll say, oh, come on, let your hair down, you can come, just take a drink, it's not as serious as all that. You don't have a problem with it. You can do whatever you want. And you begin to develop an ear for it, and it is something that I would encourage you to do, is to just start keeping an ear out for this sort of internal emotional weather that you have. And if there are some people who, they pop over for a drink or whatever, they pop over, or you're going to go and see that person, see how you feel on a deeper level. How do you feel in your soul when you know you're going to be seeing this person? Do you feel light and energized, or do you on some level feel like you're going to need to put a shield up, you're going to need to have your defenses up? Because you have to ask yourself at some point, why are these people in your life? People who do nothing but drain your energy. And I'm not saying to be cold to, if you have true friends and sometimes they need you for your support and your help. That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And yes, we can give our energy to these people if it's a sort of a mutual loving friendship. But you must notice that there are some people who just take and take and take, and they drag you down and they drag you in to their chaotic, frantic, toxic little worlds, and they pull you in. They never have a nice word to say about you, not to your face and not behind your back. And you must get rid of these people. And They have no business being in your life, and I don't care if they are a family member, if it's a spouse, if it's a close friend, whatever it is. Once you recognize that this person is actively standing in the way of your recovery, they are gone. And you might notice there is a little aggression in my voice with that. You're damn right there is. You are damn right there is. Because I protect myself. Because I know where it leads if I don't protect myself. If I don't protect my energy. If I don't protect my soul. If I don't protect my heart. I know where it goes. So, yes, I get pretty raw with it. I get pretty intense with it. I get pretty aggressive with it. If somebody is not actively helping me in my recovery, they're gone. And controlled aggression is a big part of it, because this is where your confidence is, where you have a deep feeling that you will stand up for yourself, that you are not going to be downtrodden. You are not going to be manipulated by narcissists, by manipulators, by sneaky people who don't want the best for you. I am not going to allow any of that energy into my world. And sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. Often we don't like doing it because we want everybody to like us. Well, I got a news flash for you. Not everybody is going to like you, regardless of how you are, of who you are, of how nice you are, of how much you try to please everybody around you. Some people just aren't going to like you, and that is absolutely fine. Absolutely no problem at all. So if some people aren't going to like you anyway, then why are you trying to please everyone? Sometimes you just have to align yourself with your true self, with your true being. Listen to that deeper place within you. Listen to that voice inside that wants what is best for you, and go after that. This is aligning yourself with the natural process of the world, with the natural way of the world. And sometimes it means getting rid of all of these people around that are not supporting you. Because there are many people, and most people will support you. 99% of people will support you, and you will find that the universe supports you too. When you start moving forwards, you will find everyone around you is supportive and encouraging, and they really will cheer. They will cheer and they will clap all of your successes and all of your accomplishments. And sometimes it's just a process that begins with standing up inside yourself and just making this decision to start moving forwards, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. If that means some people fall by the wayside, so be it. If it means sometimes aggressively standing up for yourself, then so be it. If sometimes it means being a little selfish, you know what? The amount of times I've had to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't come to this birthday party because I got a real problem with alcohol, and I can't be surrounded by it. I'm so sorry. And it's even things like I've missed, like when my anxiety is bad and I need to protect myself, I've missed weddings and things. I've missed important things. It's like I've missed funerals. It's because I have to protect myself, because I am not sinking and I am not succumbing to this. It's not all the time, and obviously we want to be social creatures and do the best we can with everything, but you have to have a level of confidence and security in yourself to say, my priority, my number one priority is my health and well-being, and everything I do is going to support that. And if that sometimes means I annoy people or I alienate people, then I'm real sorry, but if it means I survive, then I survive. If it means I survive, then I survive. It's as simple as that. Meaning is another huge part of human life and human experience that all too often in modern society we lose sight of. I will ask you, does your life have meaning? Do you have a daily experience of life where you are working towards a goal, or you are working towards a life that has meaning for you? Because life is painful. Life is painful. There are many situations and there are many things that get very uncomfortable and very painful about life, and that is that thing called life. That is how life is. There are difficult times, there are painful times, and life has this weird way of hitting you right on the blind side, right when you didn't need it, right at a time just when you were starting to get ahead. Life comes in and beats you down, and it beats you to your knees, and it will keep you there permanently if you let it. But if you have meaning in your life and there is meaning in the struggle, you will be able to deal with all of life's setbacks, all of life's knockbacks. I've had tons of them. Tons of them. I can't say that I decided to stop drinking 7 years ago and it's been plain sailing ever since. I've had relapses. They have been few and far between and very short. I'm not trying to minimize them. They shouldn't have happened and I fucked it up. Okay, I understand that. But it's how you deal with that setback. How do you deal with the times when you've been trying your best? You really have. You've been trying your best. You went to see the doctor. You've been trying to get yourself back on your feet. You've been doing everything right. I've been doing everything right. And then life comes in and finds a way to pull the rug from underneath you, and you feel like you're back at square one. What is going to keep you in the game? What is going to get you back on your feet that you say to yourself, no, you know what? Okay, I'll take the L on this one. I'll take the hit on this one, but I am going to come back. I'm going to get back up and I'm going to go at it again and 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 again. And I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how many times that I have to fail and pick myself back up. I am going to find a way to get myself better. I am going to find a way to move forwards, because this results in a rock solid, cold, hard confidence. Because this is how I live my life now. Whatever comes my way, I am confident that I can deal with it. I really can. Because the amount of knocks that I've had to pick myself back up, and it just adds another layer of strength, because a setback is just a set up for a comeback. And I've made a bit of almost a brand out of comebacks, about recovery, about resilience, because champions aren't made, and heroes and people we admire and respect are not people who are just always on top. Nobody respects that. We don't watch movies about people who were born with amazing looks and six packs and amazing genetics, and they were born with millions of dollars, and over the course of their life they turned it into billions of dollars. Nobody is going to applaud that. What we want to applaud is the one who overcame struggle, the one who overcame adversity. And right now you might be at the point where you are the one who is in that adversity, and you are the one who is in that struggle. You are in a very difficult place. Your whole life situation around you could be falling apart Externally, with your life situation, and internally, your mind could be chaos. It could be hard work at the moment. You are in that point now where it's time to switch on, and it is time to start engaging. And we're going to find some meaning in this struggle, because there's fight in you. Yes, there is. Because, and the reason I know that there is a fight in you is because it is in every human being. It exists in everyone. This fundamental fire inside that says, no, I am not going to put up with being low. I am not going to put up with feeling depressed and anxious and being addicted to substances and overweight and unhealthy. There is a fighting spirit within you, within everyone. And all it takes is a decision. It takes a decision that the way things have been is not how they're going to be. I choose to stand up. I choose to fight back. There is a way forwards. There is a light somewhere. I want to finish with an analogy, and this is one of the most amazing analogies for mental health that I've seen in modern times, but it's often missed. It was in Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, where it's the tale of Gandalf and the Balrog. I don't know if you've seen the movie. Most people have, but this image was often missed, and it's an allegorical tale. It's an amazing story, and it speaks deeply to the human experience. When the Fellowship were trying to get to Mordor on this crucially important quest, a crucial important quest to save the world from darkness, they had two choices about which way they go. They could either go over the top of the mountains, or they could go through the mountains. And most people miss this. There is a very brief image when they're discussing going underneath, going down, going deep and dark into the underside of the mountain. You can see the look on Gandalf's face. He does not want to go down there. He really doesn't want to, and he subtly tries to push to go over the top, and they decide to, and there is a huge relief on his face when they decide they're going to try and go over the top of the mountain, not deep and dark through the mines underneath. However, fate gets in the way, and they are prevented and they are stopped from going over the top of this mountain. They are going to have to go underneath. Now, Gandalf didn't want to go down there for a very good reason, because he knew what was waiting for him down there. And in life, this is probably sending a little bit of a shiver down your spine even as I speak, because you know what's down there, don't you? You really do. There is something deep. There is something deep in you that is going to need to be faced at some point. There is something in you, a shadow, a demon, a pain, a deep pain that has been in you for a long time, perhaps even since day one, since the very beginning, and it's going to need to be faced at some point. Now, when they got down there into these mines, there it was, a demon from the old times, and Gandalf knew this foe is beyond any of you, is what he says to the rest of his fellowship. And they have to go on ahead, and he recognizes, he sees that this is his fight. He is the only one who can deal with this demon. He is the only one who can deal with this shadow. And their fight is epic. Their fight is legendary. He finally faces this thing. He finally fights this thing. And he gets down and he gets into this fight, and it's a grind. He brings everything he's got, the best of his magic, the best of his ability. It is a fierce, brutal, and savage fight. And he prevails. He beats this thing. This dark, terrible demon. He beats it. But in the process, he is destroyed. The fight takes him out too. But here is the crucial part now. Here is the crucial part. He is reborn as Gandalf the White. He is now released of his burden with the shadow and the demon, because he turned and faced it, and he knew that on some level it was going to destroy him. But he is now reborn, powerful and pure, and he is now able, in his new form, to support and encourage and provide his strength to the rest of the Fellowship to get this mission finally done. So I would like to leave you with a question. What is it that you're avoiding? Is there something deeper under the mines, under the mountain, that you have been avoiding all of your years, many, many days now? And you can avoid it for a long time. You can exist perfectly fine without having to go down there and fight this demon and fight this shadow. But you know it's there. You really do. You know that at some point you are going to have to face it. And it could be as simple as going to see a doctor. It could be as simple as going to speak to somebody. It could be as simple as something internal and just recognizing that something has to change. But sooner or later, you're going to have to fight this thing. And I would encourage you to do so, because once you start this fight, the feeling of relief is incredible, because you are finally facing the thing that you are put on this earth to face. And once it's done, you will be reborn, stronger, purer, more able to enjoy the world, and more able to support and encourage others.